Yeah, you would like UFC if you had a shaved head. Yo, welcome back to the Four Wide Fantasy Football Podcast. Shed is the DJ, and he played last season's intro, which I am 100% for. But here we are back again, episode 6 of season 2 with your co-hosts Matt, Shed, Olu, and Will. We are here for an exciting episode to review week 1 and to preview week 2. Guys, football's finally back. We finally had our first weekend of football. It truly was a weekend. We had Thursday, Friday, Sunday, and Monday. Good games from Thursday to Monday. I mean, come on. Let's say hey to our listeners. 1 minute of shine. Shed, you're up first, man.
So here's the thing. Did we just get done watching the NFL or the AFL last week? I mean, here's the thing is that week 1's offenses were pretty bad.
Yes.
It just shows how important preseason is and also the play in a preseason as well. Who was it? It was like Burrow, Henry, Keenan Allen. All these guys had mediocre weeks, and even C.J. Stroud got out to a pretty slow start, but then he bounced back later on. I expected more out of like a Caleb Williams and a Bo Nix based on what I saw in preseason and based on the hype, just a little bit more. I know they're rookies, but just a little bit more. But I will say on the flip side, I will say, though, I was impressed with the 49ers. I feel that any running back in that offense can eat. CMC, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, because of that offensive line and Trent Williams, right? And their blocking scheme is legit. And here's a next-gen stat about Trent Williams. Trent Williams did not allow a single pressure against the Jets on 33 passing attempts. It was his first game without allowing a pressure since week 3 of 2022. So that's almost 2 years. 2 years since he hasn't allowed a pressure. So bad week for the league, but a handful of good teams. AFL, NFL. I don't know what it was.
Olu, give him your 1 minute of shine. And after Shed just shared all that, you can't be like, my 1 minute of shine is me. Like, go for it. That was actually going to be mine. But anyways.
Yeah. I would like to give 1 minute of shine to Baker Mayfield, man. Baker Mayfield's like a phoenix that rose from the ashes and rose up and really just flapping his wings and shining to the world. I love the story of Baker Mayfield. He went to the Browns. The Browns took them to the first playoffs since 1989. They mistreated him, threw him to the dirt, and kicked him out. He went to Tampa Bay to take over for Brady, and now he's flourishing. He had 4 touchdowns yesterday, 4 leading the league in 4 passing touchdowns. He had 80% completion. That is incredible. 289 yards, 146.4 passer rating. He was flawless. He was phenomenal. So I'd like to give him a 1 minute of shine to say, you know what? We all thought your career was done. We all did. Nobody wanted him the year he was a free agent. Tampa Bay took a chance on him, and it's actually paying off for the city of Tampa Bay. It's paying off for Chris Godwin. Mike Evans, it doesn't matter with him, to be honest. But with Chris Godwin, it's paying off. It's paying off for them all. It's absolutely paying off for Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles, if it wasn't for Baker, would be out of a job as a head coach. Because of Baker, he might get a second contract with Tampa. So I just want to give Baker Mayfield shout out to Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield's trending up. The Browns quarterback room trending down.
I was never a Baker fan, but to see that he was basically left for dead.
He was.
By not just one organization, but two.
Yeah.
Two. Because
3, really.
Because when Carolina picked him up, Carolina cut him mid-season as well.
Nerve. Yeah. What nerve? Carolina cut him.
Carolina cut him mid-season as well. And then he played for the Rams. Rams picked him up literally like on a Saturday. And then he started on Monday Night Football and won a game. But then they let him go. And then, he found a home in Tampa. And now he got paid this past offseason.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Absolutely.
He's making Rachaad White be relevant, And Will, go, man. Your turn.
So it's a similar comment to Olu's assessment of Baker. I think part of what we saw in week 1 is that as a quarterback, you have to be a leader of men, because we're seeing the difference between guys who have talent, like definitely have natural talent, but are not leaders of men, and then some quarterbacks with average talent, but are great leaders, and their teams are winning. And the first category, I'm thinking specifically about Daniel Jones,
Oh,
Bryce Young, and
oh,
Deshaun Watson.
oh.
3 quarterbacks who have talent. Like, they have talent, physical
Had.
gifts to be able to play. Yeah, Deshaun maybe lost it because he has not shown the talent in
Yeah,
4 years,
he has a
but they
lot going
have
on.
they have God-given gifts, but I don't see players around them feeling inspired by any of those 3 quarterbacks. Like, are those
Wow.
3 quarterbacks men who can lead other men, who
Yeah.
the receivers, the O-line, the running backs say, I'm going to play hard for this man? I do not see it with them. Baker, who maybe has average talent, has shown himself to be an excellent leader of men. All the players around him play hard for him. He's earned their trust. And that is so often the difference between a win and a loss. So that's my 1 minute to shine.
Real quick, the most ironic thing about what you said is you said Deshaun Watson and the Browns organization. They have one of the greatest leader in NFL on their roster. They just need to put him in, and everyone will play hard for
Oh,
him. Jameis
Jameis.
Winston. He is one of the NFL's
Y'all
greatest.
taste that? That's a W.
That's a
That's
W.
That's a W.
W. Eat that, eat that. Now he's amazing. His speeches are fiery. So they need to probably put yeah. What how long do you guys think before Deshaun is replaced by Winston?
The thing about Deshaun is that they're trapped. Like, his
Yeah, they can't
dead
let him
his
go.
dead cap is over $100 million.
I heard this argument these guys were debating about, is Deshaun Watson a better human being or a better NFL quarterback?
Oh man, it's close now.
Quarterback.
It's like
Clearly.
the lowest of the
Yeah,
low.
we're not gonna get into morality. We're not gonna get
Yeah.
into morality. But my 1 minute of shine, have to do something here.
Oh no.
I need to talk
Oh
about really quick
I'm just
no.
glad you made it to this
the
day.
dysfunction of the New York
how,
Football
did,
Giants.
how did they make it here?
Let me explain something to you guys. This is the second year in a row that week 1 they come out and don't even score a touchdown. Okay. Now last year they lost 40-0 in prime time. But the argument is, okay, they played the Cowboys. This year they lose 28-6 to a Sam Darnold led offense in Minnesota. They don't even score a touchdown. Okay. Now this is how you spend all offseason thinking, oh, the pass rush, the O-line looks better. Then they get out there and do that garbage. Now, let me tell you, this is how dysfunctional the organization is. This is going to make you laugh. You could carry how many people on the active roster on game day? 53, right? The Giants have 51, okay? They have 51 because of cap problems, okay? Now, here's what's interesting. Their punt returner, okay, this is how dysfunctional they are. Can I talk about Daniel Jones and throwing more pick sixes than touchdowns over the last 2 years? Yes, I can, but I'm not going to do that. Listen, let me tell you something. Listen up. Their punt returner is a guy named Gunnar Olszewski or something like that, okay? The guy's okay. He's pretty good.
Gunnar Olszewski.
Olszewski. Now,
Who's
Gunnar Olszewski's been battling an injury.
All pro.
Yeah, whatever. He's been battling an injury all camp, okay? All camp. He's been battling injury. The Giants know this. They suit him up for game day, okay? They suit him up for game day. Then he, like, pulls his hammy or his groin during warmups, okay? Now they don't even have a backup punt returner on the roster. They have 2 open slots on the roster. The one punt returner they have has a bum hammy. He pulls it in warmups. Then they put Darius Slayton back there, and the guy fumbles a punt. Like, this is how dysfunctional this team is. It makes no sense. The fans deserve better. The fans deserve better. I was listening to these guys on podcasts talking Giants, and Justin Pennick, hope you hear this, shout out to you. He's at the game. He turns around during the dysfunction and the misery of this team. He looks at fans around him and says, they can't stop us if we all decide to burn the stadium down. That's just the reality of the situation.
That might be your best case scenario.
It's like, who's going to stop us? They can't stop all of us. So anyways, I'm here for 16 more games. I'm going to watch them every week. It's just what I do. I don't have hope. Someone said to me, shout out to my friend Kai Lee. He said, we lost the first game and we're already eliminated for playoffs.
I have
Yes,
a question.
it's
I have a
true.
question. Do you think it's time to get rid of the GM? Because he's not necessarily doing a great
Joe
debate.
Shane,
Yes.
he definitely has.
And just, I think,
Matt, just because he is better than the ex-girlfriend does not mean that you
No,
can
you're
be
right.
disrespected like that.
He's done terrible at drafting. He has not done well at drafting. So there's a lot to be said there. I mean, he totally missed on Evan Neal. You can't miss when you draft a guy number 7 overall. He missed on him. His second round picks, they haven't. Jalen Hyatt's not performing. He was a third round pick. It's been a disaster.
in a loaded wide receiver class.
Did
Well,
he
Malik
was he the
Neighbors
GM who
hit.
drafted Kadarius Toney
Yes.
first round?
No,
Well,
Oh, that was before him.
that was Gettleman.
Oh,
That
okay.
was
Man,
Gettleman.
you guys have been so unlucky. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Joe Shane's first year was the year that they drafted Kayvon Thibodeau, who's not looking like a star player. And then he drafted Evan Neal, who can't even get on the field because he's so bad. And then the next year he drafted Deontay Banks, who's serviceable as a cornerback. And then this year was Malik Neighbors. But his day 2 picks have not been good. Jalen Hyatt, the guy can't even get on the field. Hyatt can't get on the field. Wandale Robinson was a second round pick. The guy's 5'7", 180 pounds. Like, he's a good slot receiver, but nothing more than that. Like, we can't. It's sad. Anyways, let me take this off. We have a decent episode. Oh, golly, it hurts to take it off. All right, we have a decent episode. Will's going to run us through the injury roundup, and then we are going to talk about some week 1 performers to note, guys who stood out for various reasons. And then we're going to go into week 2 player to note based off of our week 1 analysis. And then we're going to come back to single game mock. Will, take us through our first week's injury roundup.
Yeah, so unfortunately, this is kind of a long list of names. There were a lot of week 1 injuries, but I'll start with the most significant one for fantasy purposes, and that's going to be Jordan Love, who's got a sprained MCL. And if you watch the video of that, it's a miracle it wasn't worse because you saw the knee pop. But he'll be out 4 to 6 weeks, so that affects the entire Packers offense because guess who their backup quarterback is? Malik Willis. This is not a good time for the Packers.
No.
After that, we're monitoring Russell Wilson with the calf. He is day to day, maybe week to week. We might see Justin Fields for another Sunday coming in week 2. Christian McCaffrey with his calf, he looks like he's still week to week. Definitely not guaranteed to play in week 2. Shout out to Ricky Pearsall, who we did not mention last week. I'm sorry, pretty Ricky, but I was amazed to see him out on the field on Sunday greeting the officer and the surgeon who helped him. That was kind of a cool moment.
Yeah.
A new injury, we're going to talk about wide receivers here. Puka Nacua with the PCL. They put him on IR for 4 weeks, so he's out until week 6 at least, and there's not a guarantee he'll be ready then. It's going to be time to feast for Cooper Kupp. T. Higgins with the hamstring, he's still we're monitoring that. He's probably out week 2. Looks like he's week to week right now. Jordan Addison, who had just recovered from an ankle sprain on the one ankle, now has potentially a high ankle sprain on the other ankle. So right now he's week to week for the Vikings. Roma Dunze, grade 1 MCL sprain, he's week to week. And then we have 2 tight ends, Jake Ferguson, also an MCL sprain, week to week. And David Njoku with the high ankle sprain is going to be out 3 to 5 weeks. So guys, an unfortunate run of injuries here in week 1, but a lot of starters that you're going to have to find replacements for going into the next few weeks.
How much of this do you think it is? How much of this do you think is due to players really not playing in the preseason?
A lot.
Yes, I think a lot, and I also think
It's a
I don't know
factor.
I don't know if a lot of teams actually do a lot of heavy hitting.
No,
And-
they don't.
So that also plays a role too.
But
training
but
camps with
most
7
of
on
these
7s. Oh, go ahead, Will.
right. No, I was just gonna say, but most of these were not necessarily contact injuries.
Right. Which furthers this point.
Oh, because you're just saying their bodies are not in football.
Their bodies, yeah, exactly. They're not.
Okay.
They're not there. Training camps are getting lighter. People are not playing in the preseason. There is no way we will see an injury list this long. Late, like in 3 weeks. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, it would be extremely unlikely. That's for sure.
That's
All
10.
these week to week stuff, hamstrings, sprains.
I'm
crazy,
amazed that the Eagles Packers game that Jordan Love was the only injury. Because if y'all watched that game, did you see the field they were playing on?
Mm.
It was a soccer
It
field,
was
yeah.
terrible,
You wanted it
terrible.
so bad to be Josh Jacobs, didn't you?
Hey,
Guys were
at
slipping
least
left and
hey,
right.
my boy Emmanuel Wilson got some looks, so I'm happy about
I
that.
got some.
Let's go on to segment 1. Let's talk about our week 1 performer to note. So someone who stood out for various reasons. Now, going into the week, we had some projections. We had some players to note going into it. We hit on a few of them. Shed highlighted Alvin Kamara. The guy was a hit, man. Alvin Kamara. How about that New Orleans offense?
Yeah.
Golly. What, they put up 40? Something like that? They put up a
Yeah,
Yeah,
lot.
37.
Clint Kubiak is the new OC, and they're looking good.
Now, granted, they were playing Carolina. Now, here's what's interesting. I'm not going to go on this. If they scored 40 points, you would have think that Chris Olave had a big game. Chris Olave did not have a big game.
Nothing.
That could be a talking point. But Shed hit on that. We also hit on Travis Kelce. Will said, do not play him. We laughed at him for that reason. But Will was right
Yeah,
about that.
he was right.
Didn't do anything.
But
It's-
it wasn't because of Kyle Hamilton, though. He was just not positive.
I think it was because of game
That's
script, to be
fine.
honest.
Yeah, he was
But-
saving. Yeah.
You know, hey, there it is. Player to note, Shed, enlighten us with more insights.
All right. The player to note is J.K. Dobbins.
Mm.
Dobbin racked up 135 yards on 10 carries. That's 13.5 yards per carry and a touchdown. He paired that with 3 catches with 3 targets for 4 receiving yards. And here are some advanced stats about him. So rushing yards over expected, or RYOE, rushing yards over expected, what you're supposed to get versus what you actually got. So Dobbins had the NFL's top 2 rushing yards over expected, your RYOE. He had the top 2 plays for week 1. And again, this is what you're supposed to get versus what you got. He was first and second. Saquon was third. Jaden Reed was fourth, and Jacobs was fifth. And Dobbins had 2 explosive plays for 46 yards and 61 yards. Both came in the second half. But he seemingly had more of the highlights, and he gained 99 combined yards rush over expected rate. So Dobbins was only expected to gain 6 yards on the 46-yard burst, meaning that he got a plus 40, right? And the fourth quarter, he ran for 61 yards, and he was only expected to gain 2 yards, but he got a plus 59 rushing yards over expected. So he was 1 and 2 this week. Dobbins was very well. He did very well on this offense, even with Gus Edwards there. So he's your solid starter moving forward.
Ooh. In the Jim Harbaugh offense.
In the Jim Harbaugh,
Right.
yes.
The guy who has torn, 2 ACLs and an Achilles or something like that?
Yeah, 1 ACL, 1 Achilles. And the Achilles was exactly 12 months ago, so this is pretty impressive recovery.
Wow.
I got to
No, I
say
mean-
one thing about Dobbins. I don't know if y'all saw Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee, and he was telling the story that he and J.K. Dobbins rehabbed together. So
Yeah.
they were in the same facility
Aw, that's so
rehabbing
romantic.
rehabbing their Achilles. But he had so many good things to say about J.K. Dobbins, and even said like he is the reason why my rehab went so well. Like he motivated me. So that was kind of a cool little nugget from Aaron Rodgers about that.
All right, Olu, you're up, man. Week
Okay,
1
so-
performer to note.
My player to note is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon had a heck of a game. He had an amazing game. Why are you laughing, Will? Why are you laughing? Is that a laugh of?
Is he
I
going
don't
to
know.
get 32 carries every week?
Well, listen to this. Listen to
It's
this.
not. That's not the segment. The segment is his week 1 player to note. Okay.
Thank you. So he
Okay.
has something amazing. He played 34 snaps the whole game, right? And he had 30 carries for 159 yards. Okay.
It's money.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. But here's what the most amazing things: 101 of those yards came after contact. Get it?
That's good.
So basically, he had only like 58 yards before contact. A lot of those yards were after contact. That is amazing. He averaged 55.3 yards per carry. He has such a phenomenal day, and it really just and to be honest, in Houston they were struggling in the passing game, and he really broke the game wide open for them. For them to have a lot of what's it called? So them to have a lot of opportunity. So yeah, so he just has an amazing game, and I think next week he will have an even better game because they play who they play. Let's see, they play the 1 second. They play the Colts, right? No. They just play the Colts. Who they play next week? I mean, this is coming up. Can somebody help me out?
Oh, Houston?
No.
Houston?
Houston versus schedule. Let's see who they play. Oh, Houston Texans.
See.
Who's gonna get it first?
Okay, sorry. They play the Bears. No, wait.
Oof.
Yeah, start him.
That's not good.
No, the Bears
No,
defense
actually,
is
no.
fine, but
The best run defense is not good, actually.
no, they got gashed by Tony Pollard.
Yeah,
That was the
gashed by
one
Tony
good
Pollard.
thing about the Titans.
So I can see them having an amazing game because the Bears are going to lock down a lot of the passing game. They are, because that's just who they are. So they have to rely on the run game. So he's probably going to get as much carries. So I just feel like Joe Mixon this year is a really like noteworthy player this week for sure.
So I feel like every year you think, okay, Mixon's gonna fall off. Mixon's not gonna do well.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Like I feel like Mixon is like a James Conner, right, or like an old school Frank Gore, right? Just keeps going, just keep trucking along.
He just
You think that-
produces.
Yes, just produces, and that's how I
Emmitt
feel.
Smith. I'm kidding.
And that's how I feel like Mixon is. Yeah, and Mixon, he's you're right. He's doing well. He's on a good team.
Yeah,
Will.
I was pleasantly surprised. My week one player to note is quarterback Joe Burrow. Womp womp. This was an awful game. Now, here's what I want to say. Here are his stats, just to get the numbers out there. He was 21 of 29. That's not bad. But it was for 164 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 86 pass rating. So here's what I want to say about Joe Burrow. He only completed 3 passes that traveled more than 7 yards downfield. That's terrible. So of his 21 completed passes, only 3 of them traveled more than 7 yards. He looked scared to push the ball down the field, which made me a little bit worried about how healthy his wrist is. But here's what I want to say that might make our listeners feel a little bit better about him going into week 2. So Burrow on week 1 through 5 years of his career. So 5 years of his career playing on week 1. These are his stats, the compilation of his stats. 63% completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a 75 rating. The Bengals every year, they lay an egg on week 1. They're awful. They look unprepared. They look scared. They look skittish. So my hope is that this is just another week 1 for the Bengals where the whole team is awful. He was awful. But I do want to say this. His stats looked worse than they should have been. Mike Gesicki dropped a touchdown pass in the end zone. Like, that was a touchdown pass. He dropped it. And then Trenton Irwin fumbled at the goal line. Like, he took a slant pass, was at the goal line, reached, and fumbled. So that was 2 touchdowns taken away from Burrow. He would have had 2 passing touchdowns. Catch the ball and don't fumble at the goal line. So it was an awful week 1 performance that cost a lot of people the week. A lot of people lost because of that. But I'm still going to say, don't worry going forward, because this is what they do on week 1, the Bengals, that is, and he's going to bounce back.
And I will add to this. He was probably very wise not to throw the ball deep or anything like that, because he would have paid for it. The Patriots secondary is one of the best in the league. They were
good.
Yeah, there'll be very few quarterbacks this year that will have success throwing the ball all over the place. So that's probably very, very wise of him. They're stacked. We have Christian Gonzalez, the first round pick of the Patriots last year. He's phenomenal.
I think 2 years ago, right? Because he was injured his rookie year.
Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah, but
Burrow
also did not have Jamar Chase all offseason. And then T. Higgins
he was out,
scratched 2 days before the game.
Yeah.
So their pass catchers were very limited. Granted, it's Joe Burrow and you're paying the guy, what, $50 million? but yeah, he was working with Andre Yoshivas.
Trenton Irwin,
Right.
and then Chase Brown and Zach Moss out of the backfield.
Yeah. So I mean, it was. Yeah. I don't know what the expectations should have been. My guy, and this is the guy who I think has been the talk of week one. And sometimes we could forget that this is week one because it was on Thursday, opening day. But Isaiah Likely, the player to note, is by far, I think, Isaiah Likely. I mean, consider this: the tight end position. We all know that it's rather thin, right? Here's what's interesting. Did you know that the guys who were the top 10 drafted tight ends, only one of them scored in double-digit fantasy points last week?
Yeah, it was horrible week for tight ends.
It was Kyle Pitts of all these guys.
Because he got a touchdown.
Because he got a touchdown. Here's what's interesting. Isaiah Likely alone outscored Travis Kelce, Kincaid, McBride, and Andrews combined.
Yeah, but that was mostly most tight ends, not just
the second top scoring tight end was Foster Moreau.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And so Isaiah Likely. Now, here's what's interesting. Take this. Now, okay, what's his stat line? 9 catches, 111 yards, 72 yards that were after the catch. A tight end, 72 yards after the catch. So Isaiah Likely. Here's what's interesting. He ran 35 routes and was targeted 12 times. Mark Andrews ran 38 routes, but was only targeted twice. So Mark Andrews ran the same amount of routes, if not just a little bit more, but was only targeted 2 times.
So do we think that is a true indicator of how things are going?
And I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Now, Andrews had 2 catches for 14 yards, 5 yards after the catch. He pretty much would catch the ball and then fall down. Isaiah Likely, I mean, you guys saw the catch and run. What was the next gen, or what was the advanced analytics? He had a 0.3% of scoring on that catch that he actually ran into the end zone. And let's not forget, if the guy was just one shoe size smaller, he would have had another touchdown. Right? if he didn't have the gout, he would have had another touchdown at the end of the game. Okay.
Or if he had Deion Sanders' toes.
Right.
So I saw that. I saw someone say that.
Oh, how he only has 3 toes?
Or Mahomes said next time you should wear white colored shoes.
Exactly. So Isaiah Likely already had 9 catches for 111 yards, and he would have had another touchdown with more yards had his foot not had he been wearing a size 13 shoe and not a size 14. Okay. Now, here's what's interesting though. So the question I ask for you is this the direction that Baltimore is going? Now, Isaiah Likely is definitely more athletic than Mark Andrews. Or is this just how Kansas City plays Baltimore? Because last year, Mark Andrews in the playoff game, all Mark Andrews had was 2 catches for 15 yards against Kansas City. The time before that, when they played Kansas City, was in 2021. I believe he had 5 catches for 50. So do they play Mark Andrews tight, or is Isaiah Likely just that good? Is this the way that they're going?
Here's what I'm going to say. Mark Andrews looked slow to me. So he remember, he had his broken leg last year.
Yeah, and he
had a car accident, which I don't, who knows how much the car accident affected him. He looked slow and he looked sluggish. I don't know if he's still getting in shape, because obviously after the car accident, he couldn't train. Like he couldn't be out there running, so maybe his conditioning was off. He did not look good. And then Isaiah Likely is like a cheat code. Moves like a wide receiver as a tight end.
So but I'm going to push back on that. He still ran 38 routes, though.
Andrews
ran 38 routes. He ran more routes than Likely.
I feel like you have to understand, football players always play injured. He was in a car accident. He's just coming from rehab. He's not 100%, and he's playing like he's not 100%. So I think that's why he didn't get a lot of targets, because they know, all right, we don't want to put you in harm's way. We just want you to be there, whenever you can get open, try your best. So they're not going to feature him that much. And guess what? He actually got hurt again before the night was over in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
So
do you start both of them? Like if you have either of them, do you start them?
No. One thing I know is you are moving. You've got to move Likely up.
Yes, you sit
Yes.
Mike Andrews and you start Likely. You do not start Mike Andrews.
That
Oh.
likely has to move up everybody's tight end ranking.
Yes, yes.
I mean, you go 9 catches for 111 yards, 72 yards after the catch. What tight end?
Against a good defense.
It's a good defense. It's not a slouch
Right.
defense.
And,
Yeah.
and let me just reiterate. Let me apologize. I don't know if Isaiah likely has the gout. That was a bad joke. Okay, I'm not going to say the man's big toe is inflamed. Okay, but Shed, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so even though they were pretty much 50-50 as far as routes ran, you could tell, well, two things. It looked like the offense was targeting Likely. They had some specific plays for Likely, number one. And number two, it looked like Lamar felt more comfortable with Likely as well, too.
It's chemistry.
Both, both of those come into play, which I think Likely will be the guy moving forward because he's a lot faster, he's a lot quicker. The coaches see that in practice. Thus, they target him a lot more.
Yeah, and Matt talked about Mark Andrews ran 38 routes. He only had 2 targets.
That's what I'm saying.
So he's not getting open. He's not getting open on his routes.
Or it's the way in which they're utilizing Likely, because a lot of his routes were not deep routes. I mean, there was the busted play, but a lot of them really were flats, check down, and then he was making plays happen after the 72 yards after the catch.
And here's a key. Here's a key to everything we're talking about right now. Lamar forces the ball to Likely. He's been doing that.
Did he just freeze?
Here, let me say this while we get Olu back. The Ravens.
Olu's over there having
the Ravens. Here, let me say this, and then I'll pass it back to you, Olu. Here will be the Ravens' top 3 receivers for the 2024 season, and in no particular order: Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely will be their top 3 receivers.
I disagree.
It's not going to be Bateman, it's not going to be Aguilar, and it's not going to be Justice Hill.
I disagree. I think it's going to be Zay Flowers, Likely, and whomever else.
It's going to be Andrews. It's not going to be Bateman or Aguilar or Devontae Walker.
Here's a key factor that tells me that Lamar forces the ball to Likely.
No, he forces the ball to Andrews every game except for this one.
Right. No, but since last playoff, he's been doing that. Even if Likely is in double coverage, he forces the ball to him. So I think it's going to be the second target from. Actually, he had more targets than Zay Flowers did. Actually, didn't he?
Who? Likely? Likely led the team.
Yes,
in targets.
Yeah. Zay Flowers had 10 targets, 6 receptions. Likely had 12 for 9.
Let's one thing to note before we move on, just in general, is that I think this week overall was pretty underwhelming for passing offenses.
Correct.
In general, we saw very few touchdown passes thrown, and then we saw many quarterbacks throw for under 200 yards. And I'm talking guys like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. I think even Dak threw for under 200 yards. The top passing quarterbacks this week were like Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield.
Crazy.
It was definitely an interesting week with that said. But let's move on to week 2.
But before I move on, like we said, it was a tough week for passing offenses, also for tight ends. But I would like to point out, Brock Bowers was the 3rd in tight end in terms of fantasy. Matt, you said Brock Bowers will not be a factor in fantasy.
I did say that.
I'd just like to point that out.
Very good. You were right about that.
He was a factor in week 1 at least. Yep.
Yes.
It's early.
Let's move on to week 2. Player to note. Who is that fringe player? We're making fun of Shed because Shed put on the notes Sam Darnold, like someone was really thinking of starting Sam Darnold or sitting him for that matter. Not even on the roster. But sorry, Shed, threw you out. Didn't need to do that.
I'm going to comment on that. Go ahead. Finish up.
Week 2 player to note. Who's the player that we should encourage listeners to either start or sit that they're contemplating about? Shed, go first, man.
So people would be tempted to start Sam Darnold because he had a good week. But I say no, don't do that if you're in like maybe a 2-quarterback league or you need a quarterback. But my player to start is look at Brian Robinson, right? The talk during the offseason was that Austin Eckler would be a threat to Brian Robinson. And evidently that turned out not the fact of week 1. So week 2, look for Brian Robinson. He had 16 touches, 89 total yards, a touchdown, and about 20 fantasy points. So he's a clear-cut number 1 RB1. Washington ran the ball about 14 times to their running backs, and Robinson had 12 of those. So clearly they're going strictly to Robinson. I think with Jaden Daniels there, Robinson ability has increased because defenses are going to focus more on Daniels moving forward, which will open things up for Robinson, and that's more going to be more profitable for him. Austin Eckler is not getting goal line carries. He's not getting, he has to earn his touchdowns, and everything will go to either Daniels or Robinson.
Brian Robinson.
Junior.
That's actually a great one.
Junior.
He's another guy that just produces. Like, I was not high on him even last year, and he, week after week, he gets it done.
Olu, you're up, man.
Okay.
Who's your guy? Week 2.
Oh, my guy week 2 is Berkey Irvin.
Bucky.
Berkey, not to be confused.
Not Berkey.
Not to be confused with Berkey.
With Winter Soldier. Okay, so I think this guy is worth a shot to start because he's currently in handcuff to Richard White from the Buccaneers. But if you look at the Richard White's stats, he had 15 carries for 31 yards for 2.1 yards per carry. Richard White is a very, very inefficient runner. He has never been an efficient runner since the day of Brady, since the year after that, and up to now. In 3 years, he's probably averaged for 3 yards, and so far he's averaged less. Contrast that with Berkey, who had only 9 carries and went for 62 yards. He has 6.9 yards per attempt. He's a very, very efficient runner, even from his days in Oregon. And also, one of Richard White's strength is receiving, which Berkey could do as well. So, do you want a guy who's an efficient in running, or do you want a guy who can actually catch the ball and also run? And I think the team is seeing that, and they would probably most likely start featuring Berkey heavily in the offense, more than 31% of the offense.
Just to let our listeners know, it is Bucky Irving and it is Kamala Harris.
Hey, what are you talking about?
Just so we get the pronunciations right.
Pronunciation correct.
Yeah, okay, that's not. My wife's name is Kamala, actually.
I know you were saying Berkey.
All right, that's irrelevant.
Do you guys think so? No, Bucky Irving. Yeah, he could be a sneaky play.
6 yards a carry behind the same offensive line.
Yes.
Do you think so? I know I'm looking ahead, right? I'm looking ahead beyond week 2.
Mm-hmm.
Does Rashad White finish the season as the Bucs starter?
No, he does not.
Rashad is going to become the third down back, and Bucky is going to become the starter.
Absolutely. And here's the deal: Rashad White will be heavily exposed this week coming up because they're playing Detroit. Detroit is really strong with the run defense. So they can't keep having hit his head against a wall. So they're gonna have to.
Will, you're up, man.
All right, so fringe player that you may want to look at to start in week 2 and honestly for the next 4 weeks, wide receiver Demarcus Robinson of the Los Angeles Rams. He is now their wide receiver 2 after Cooper Kupp because Puka is on IR with the knee. And here's what I want to tell you about last year. Last year, when Demarcus Robinson appeared in over 60% of the Rams' offensive snaps, he did that in 4 games last year. Here were his stats: 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's 65 yards and 0.75 touchdowns a game. And guess who they are playing against in week 2? The Arizona Cardinals, who just got ran over by the Buffalo Bills with all their new wide receivers and skill players. Ooh. I think this is going to be a shootout, the Rams against the Cardinals, and Demarcus Robinson is going to be seeing a lot of those targets and a lot of yards against a leaky defense. So if you had one of those receivers we talked about earlier, like T. Higgins, like Puka Nacua, like Jordan Addison, Rome Odunze, and you need someone as your wide receiver 3 flex spot, I'd look at Demarcus Robinson. He's going to get the volume. And when he got that last year, he produced every single week.
I remember laughing at you for picking him in our single game mock in one of our, and I was like,
Oh,
Demarcus
DeMarcus?
Robinson, what kind of factor is he going to be? And then the guy had like 6 catches and a touchdown or something like that. And I was like, what in the
He can
world?
play when he gets the opportunity. He gets it done.
Good stuff, man. You know, my guy, all of you guys encouraged our listeners to start somebody. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that there's somebody we should sit. And I remember last year, towards the end of the season, we on this podcast were big on sitting Stephon Diggs towards the end of the season. I think we talked about it numerous weeks in a row, and we were right about that. And I'm going to encourage our listeners to sit a guy that I actually really like, and that's Michael Pittman Jr.
Oh,
And to be honest, it's very tough to trust the Indianapolis pass catchers right now.
yes.
And it's not because they're not talented, but the reality is Anthony Richardson, if you're an Anthony Richardson owner, you were happy with his fantasy production because the man had, what did he had 3 total touchdowns, 212 yards passing, 56 yards rushing, two passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. So he scored well for fantasy. But what's so interesting is of his 212 yards passing, it came on 9 completions.
Oh my gosh.
He had 9 completions
Insane.
in an entire game.
Oh, total completions.
He had 9 total, not in a half.
Total.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He only had 19 attempts. Okay? So the man had 9 completions, and Michael Pittman Jr. ran 21 routes, was targeted 7 times, and had 4 catches for 31 yards. It's just really tough to trust a pass catcher in an offense that only threw the ball 20 times. Will that be the game script every week? No. There's no way that could be the game script every week. However, I do believe that offense is going to run the ball. Why? Because they have Jonathan Taylor, they have Anthony Richardson, and who is their head coach? Isn't it the former offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, Shane Steichen.
And Steichen wants to run the ball. That's what he did last year. He wants to run the ball. And so for you to have a pass catcher as talented as he is in Michael Pittman in this offense. Now, Michael Pittman had a great season last year, but over half of that was not with Anthony Richardson. So it's tough to really trust Michael Pittman Jr. in this situation. So I would say based off of week 1, even though numbers were all over the place and I think somewhat fluky, I move him down my board.
I got to say something to this. I don't know if y'all will remember this last year when Anthony Richardson got hurt and they shut him down for the year. And then they said it's going to be Gardner Minshew from here on out. I came on this podcast and I said, this is a plus for all the other Colts skill players.
I remember this.
And y'all laughed at me. Y'all laughed at me. You said the starter quarterback gets hurt and it's a plus. And I said, yes, because Anthony Richardson is going to run the ball so much.
I remember this.
And Michael Pittman had a career year with Gardner Minshew. It's going to be a big drop-off this year.
Yeah,
because
production.
A lot of the touches are going to be going to the quarterback and to the run game.
You know, I would go as far as to say I don't think we should be starting any pass catchers in Indy. Because the reality is, like, some people would say, well, look at Alec Pierce's numbers. Pierce had like 3 catches.
Right.
And let's just be honest, as the season goes on, we're going to see Adonai Mitchell cut into his snaps, and then Josh Downs is going to come back. But the reality is, it's tough. The trajectory of this offense, I think it's clear what they're trying to do. And I don't think passing the ball is going to be what they're good at.
They may win and the team may function like an NFL team, but for a fantasy relevance, none of those receivers. None. I mean, you may have a random game like Alec Pierce had, but you won't have anybody relevant game in and game out.
Right.
But they had a very lackluster offense though, because this week, which even that is like even the running part of it. Jonathan Taylor didn't have a good stats from last week. They ran the ball 22 times, and they passed for only 19 times. So that's a very
It's a slow offense.
yeah, that's a very anemic offense.
It's a very slow offense.
Yeah.
And I think Taylor was on the field for like 98% of snaps or something like that. Like he didn't come on. It was crazy.
He was
If I'm not mistaken.
underutilized. He was underutilized, however.
Let's finish up there. Let's go to our last segment, single game mock. This is definitely one that we enjoy. And
New
what we
Year's
did-
New Year's same results, right?
we
Gosh.
take the Thursday night game and we do a 2-round fantasy draft from the
Nothing
upcoming Thursday night game. We only draft running backs, receivers, and tight ends. No quarterbacks, no kickers, no defenses. Last week was week 1, and we drafted from the Kansas City Buffalo game. And last season, Olu, the king of Zamunda, won the whole thing. He was the 4-wide fantasy football podcast champ. And this year, he has started off just like he finished last year. Olu leads with 36.7 points. And second is myself with 20.7. So Olu has a very nice lead. And third is Shed with 17.9. And in last place is Will with 17.5. I think that's how we finished last
I'm
year.
0.4 points behind Shed, and y'all make it sound like I'm getting destroyed. What? Hold on. Olu had Xavier Worthy, didn't he?
Olu had Xavier Worthy and somebody else who performed really well.
Did any of us pick Isaiah Likely?
Pacheco.
Nobody picked Likely.
Oh
Nobody
my
picked Likely.
gosh.
The last pick of the draft was Rashad Bateman. Nobody picked Likely.
Terrible.
No, Olu, who else did you had? Worthy and you had somebody else. Pacheco.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's easy for Olu on this one.
So this week it's Buffalo at Miami. 2 offenses last week that performed
Wait,
pretty
Buffalo
well.
and Miami? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
oh, wow.
it is.
The Thursday night game is Buffalo at Miami. Olu has the first pick, then Will, then myself, then Shed. And then we'll snake back with Shed, myself, Will, and then Olu.
Okay.
So
Buffalo has a really, really bad secondary. They do have a good defense.
No, not anymore. They do not have a good defense anymore.
But they lock down the receivers for the what's it called? The receivers for
Arizona?
Yeah.
But Arizona still put up 28 points, right?
I saw somebody say that Kyler Murray, when he runs around with the ball, he looks like a toddler running. You saw it, Will?
And I can never unsee that. I can never
toddler
unsee
that stole
that
their mother's phone.
Yes. That's all I see when I watch him run. It's terrible. Olu, you can't look. There's no way for you to mess up this first overall pick. There's only one option.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2.
No, there's not. There's one option.
Hold on 1 second. Let me give me 1 second. Oh my gosh!
If you have to think about this, you deserve to lose.
I'm looking at the notes, and you guys wrote out the names of the players available. And Shed, you spelled so many people's names.
I know.
How did you spell Curtis Samuel wrong?
Hold on. Wait.
Samuel.
It's all good. I appreciate you, Shed. I appreciate you.
Who did the Dolphins play this past weekend?
It doesn't matter.
Hold on 1 second, big guy.
Jaguars. They played the Jaguars. It doesn't matter.
Jaguars.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'll go with Tyreek
Hill.
Hill.
You pick Tyreek Hill already?
Tyreek Hill.
Shed, his name is spelled Tyreek. Not Tyrek.
Who's writing these down? Is Shed writing this down?
Shed erased how he spelled Samuel wrong and wrote it wrong again.
Double E's. Got it.
Oh my gosh. Hey, man. So this second pick is actually
it's not easy.
No, I have to think about this because I'm looking at 3 options.
Yeah.
Whoever you take, make sure it's Dawson Knox.
Okay. I am swinging for the fences because I'm in last place. Give me Devon Achane.
I know. I knew you were going to.
Wait, guys, did you guys know Agent had 2.4 yards per carry last week?
Will, 2.4, Will. Are you sure?
I'm sure because he had like 7 receptions. He had 7 receptions or something like that. That's all I need. Give me Achane.
I will take, with the third pick of the draft, Give me the best receiver on the board, Jalen Waddle.
Yeah. See, I was between those two. It was going to be A-Chain or Waddle.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say A-Chain, sometimes I say A-Chain because
Hey,
I'll get it
Shane.
right
Depending
one
on
at
how
a
well he
time.
performs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shed, you got 2 picks in a row, man.
So first one is going to be James Cook. That's pretty
Oh, he gets
obvious.
a lot of goal line carries.
No, he
Not.
does not. He'll get
I'm
carries
hoping-
anywhere except within the
Yeah,
5.
no.
Goal line to the 5.
Yeah, anywhere except within the 10.
Then I'm gonna try also for the upside, and I don't know. I'm gonna go Mostert.
What?
I'm-
Oh wow! No,
Even though
okay.
Jeff Wilson is taking away carries.
All
There's
right,
no
let's
going
go.
back. You said it out loud. You have Raheem Mostert. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I don't think that sticks. I'm hoping it doesn't stick.
This is an easy one, Matt.
No, it's actually there's 2 guys on between, to be honest. But I'm gonna go. You know what?
Go with the safe pick.
Give me no.
Safe
Give me
pick.
one of my new favorite players
Oh,
in the
no.
entire NFL.
I
A man
wanted
who
him.
shops at Macy's to buy his coats for 89. What? How much they got? 89.
79.89.
No, Macy's. What you mean? 89.79. I'll take you there myself. You got to go in the off season. Give me Keon Coleman, man. I love him.
Can I
love
take
him.
these cookies?
Take these cookies.
All right, give me Dalton Kincaid. That's
Dalton
easy.
can fade. That's who he is, Mr. No offensive production.
Not in week 2. It's a bounce back.
Will's interesting. That could you could end up with good production there, Will, if both of these guys hit.
Yes,
He
I
could.
could easily win this week.
He
I'm amazed
could.
Kincaid made it after Mostert and Coleman.
Now the guy Olu's going to pick is going to be the guy who scores like 2 touchdowns.
Of course,
Like in
yeah,
this
no,
this last pick.
Curtis
course.
Samuel for like 12 receptions out of the backfield.
Or as Shed
yeah,
likes to pronounce it or spell it.
Give me
Samuel.
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 Give me Shakir.
Oh,
Oh boy. There it is. That's the one. Now, then what's going to happen is Shakir's going to score a touchdown and get like 80 yards, and then Olu's going to say, I told you guys. That's what he's going to
Of
say.
course, I told you guys.
He's going to say, I told you guys.
But here's the
So-
deal, though. I like for our rookie draft. I drafted Shakir, knowing he was going to become this. Did you guys
But
know
then you
that?
traded him to me.
You also drafted Said Tillman.
right.
Okay, that's one. All right, but most of my guys I've drafted as a hit. Check this out. I drafted Brian Robinson. You guys know that, right? Brian
Okay,
Robinson
But you
Jr. I
traded him away.
Wait, let me finish. I drafted Michael Wilson. I drafted Andre Yoshiva.
Yoshiva still has not done anything.
Michael
Well, he
Wilson's
will.
not been a hit yet.
He will. And I got Rashid
He
Saheed.
will.
Rashid Saheed. Like,
Hey, I drafted Jalen Hyatt.
No,
He will. Like, what is that? I drafted Tank Bigsby. He will.
wait,
Like,
I got one more. I drafted Tangale.
Yeah, and
Very
you
good,
traded
Olu.
him away.
all right. So to round out to
Drafted Nico
summarize,
Collins. I also drafted Nico Collins.
to summarize
Okay.
our single game mock, Olu is sitting pretty with Tyreek Hill and Khalil Shakir, the one who will get 2 touchdowns. We should make a bet. Like if Shakir gets 2 touchdowns, I think we all got to shave our facial hair or something like that.
No, you don't have to.
I
Just give
will
me my props. That's all.
All right. Will has Devon Achane and Dalton Kincaid. He is swinging for the fences, high upside picks. I have Jalen Waddle and Keon Coleman, and my prediction is that Shed will get the fewest points of all of us, with James Cook and Raheem. I believe that Shed will finish out this week with probably
15
about.
points.
I was gonna say 50
This was
total
an
yards.
upside pick. This was not a gut pick. This was an upside pick.
50 total yards. But anyways, that is our episode for all of you guys. I hope you had as much fun as we did. We'll be back next week with a week 2 review and a week 3 preview. We wish you the best.
the season with your hosts, Matt, Shed, Will, and Olu. We'll see you next week.
Yay. Boom.